You're listening to the Youth Critic Podcast on KHZ Network. Find us on Facebook at Decibel UNG Radio and find us on Twitter at Decibel UNG.
I wish I could fight bad guys like
If you like this episode, please leave a like and comment on our iTunes page at KHZ Network.
Almost every time.
And now for the podcast.
Maybe you just need someone watching your back. Hi. Like a partner.
Dr. Pym, I actually heard what happened to you. You opened up the quantum realm. That's when this crazy creepy ghost who like walks through walls and stuff. Stole your tech. And now she wants to take over the world or whatever. Who would have believed that in your hour of need, you would turn to us?
Not me.
Because we robbed you. Do you remember? That's us.
The only chance we've got is both of you.
Ant-Man and The Wasp teaming up.
Follow my lead.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Youth Critic Podcast. I am your host, Cale Smith. Joining me today is Tyler Scruggs from tylerscruggs.com.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And today we are going to be talking about Marvel's 20th movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yay.
Indeed we are. Yeah, we saw this film together. I mean, I'm excited to talk to you about it because you drove a ways down to the movie theater in Morrow, and I was surprised that you did it, but you came down and we watched Ant-Man and the Wasp together, and it was fun as heck. So thanks for coming.
It was. Well, here's the thing. I didn't know anyone that was really seeing the movie because everyone I talked to was like, it's Marvel Light. We'll catch it like in the next 2 weeks or on Blu-ray. And I was like, well, that doesn't benefit me at all because I have to see a movie like within a week for this podcast. So I was like, when I heard you were going to see it tomorrow, I was like, okay, I'll go and make the drive. I do it. I'll go, and so why not?
Cool.
But yeah, so
I see every Marvel movie Thursday night. I love the thrill of it. I love event films, and I think some people get really annoyed by like the people who go, just the crowds and like the packed theaters. But I don't know. That's part of why I love movies is the community, cultural aspect of it. So I'm always going to see a movie opening night, like the first showing, because it's the best. It's my favorite.
Same, because that's how I feel. I mean, I haven't been able to see any of the Marvel, like this year's Marvel movies on the Thursday night. I usually had to go on Monday because I just had friends that were going to go on Monday, or when Infinity War came out, it was literally like the last weekend before I did my capstone presentation, so I just could not get away for like 3 hours to go see it.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to find 3 hours to see Infinity War in the first place. Not necessarily because, I didn't want to see it, but because that was a super long movie. And I didn't get to see that movie a second time in theaters because I was just like, I don't have time. I can't justify to myself these 3 hours to like spend watching a movie in theaters when I could be doing a lot of other things that are potentially more productive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there was a great bit of deal that was in May, and you and I were both busy that season because we were both working on our own stuff, like the podcast and Atlanta Film Festival stuff. So, we were just busy, and it's just been a really busy year in general. But yeah, and then it just seems like every year everyone just gets busier and busier. But yeah, so for the first time since I think Spider-Man: Homecoming, I got to see a Marvel movie on opening night, and
it was almost a year to the day. That was last year's July 7th or first week in July Marvel movie. It's like clockwork. These are like holidays now. That's how I factor it in. Is like, okay, every quarter I'm going to see a movie on opening night. That's that's the reality I live in now. 3 Marvel movies and a Star Wars.
Yep.
Every year, forever,
And
until I die.
Yep, and the occasional DC movie.
I pass on those. I don't see those anymore.
Did you even go to Wonder Woman?
I did go to Wonder Woman. I enjoyed Wonder Woman. I accidentally went to the Regal Atlantic Station like VIP showing of Wonder Woman at like 10 a.m. So I went to like the 21 and up, like $25 luxury experience by myself. But I did manage to have like a beer and a chicken Caesar salad. And I watched Wonder Woman, and that was a wonderful cinematic experience. Almost like the polar opposite to my cinematic experience seeing Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman or Green Lantern, or actually Green Lantern was fun. And I didn't see Suicide Squad in theaters or
Justice League. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the.
I've had to. Yeah, I'm in a very different season of my life in terms of like movie consumption and like I used to be the type to go to like all of the advanced screenings and like literally go to the movies 4 to 5 times a week. And that was intense. And I'd see like hundreds of movies, and I was really like intent on like just consuming good, bad, in between movies at all times. And I still would love to be that kind of person. But honestly, studios are making it harder and harder and harder to not only feel like you've accomplished in watching all the new releases for the week, but to make that a worthwhile experience, like, is a whole other ball game, it feels like. So long-winded way to say I don't go to the movies as often as I'd like to anymore, but I really make time for Disney movies specifically.
Well, they're the only they're the only company that has decent, consistent quality.
Between. I just know that when it comes to Disney, this is a very thoroughly thought out product. Like whatever is going to be presented to me on screen has so many stamps of approval and so many like kind of like fingerprints on it that when it does hit, it's far more meaningful and far more impactful to me because of the amount of filters and obstacles that were in the way of whatever genuinely pure idea came from this film. And that's one of the reasons why I came around to appreciate Star Wars: The Last Jedi, because as I found that film very frustrating initially, but upon rewatch, good, bad, or ugly, people were longing for an artistic Star Wars film, and this is like, it's very much a movie that definitely came from one guy's head, and like Rian Johnson thought of it, executed it, did it. Now there's blue milk titty scene in
green milk titty scenes.
Green milk titty scenes, and that's what come to love it in that regard. Is like, that was someone's decision, and they just got to do it, and no one like could say anything.
And no one was like, "That's too weird."
Yeah, no, I mean, but like, I was like, I also, so the other side of that is, in addition to buying IMAX 3D ticket to whatever Disney, Marvel, or Star Wars movie I go to see, I also buy the art of books. So like the production art and kind of like the just kind of the behind the scenes on the production and the conceptualization of these films. And in The Last Jedi, they bring up the scene, I always want to call that creature a moof, because I don't know why this isn't related. I don't know why this isn't a direct correlation, but in Star Wars The Force Awakens, Han Solo calls someone a moof milker, and like as an insult, kind of like a, you know, like the new like Nerf herder, like I was like, oh, you moof milker. I don't remember the context, but for whatever reason, in the next film's milking scene, they don't like. That's a perfect opportunity for Luke Skywalker to be a moof milker, but that creature is not called a moof. So it's a weird like lack of a callback scene. Anyway, I buy the production art books, and people really resistant to that scene, but it exists now, and I, for one, have come around to being thankful for it. And spiel.
Yeah. So speaking of Disney, what did you think of the first Ant-Man? Just to backtrack a bit, because
so I did a little bit of research. I was always super passionate about Ant-Man. I've always kind of been an Ant-Man defender. I loved a lot of the comics that I read, not only as a kid, but as the production sort of came around, I started to re-explore kind of like Giant Man and like Robert Kirkman's Astonishing Ant-Man series, well as some of the more recent stuff that they were doing. I really came around to love Scott Lang as a character in its own like comic book right, before I was introduced to Paul Rudd's Ant-Man. And I had always been aware of Ant-Man as a film in production since the early Edgar Wright days, because I think he first brought up Ant-Man when he was doing press for Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which was now 8 years ago. So like it's always been like this film that was a presence in my life that I was excited for purely on an Edgar Wright basis. But as the Marvel Cinematic Universe turned into what it is today, I totally understand why the Edgar Wright Marvel Cinematic Universe split off happened. I'm disappointed that it happened. And I think I was explaining this to you last Thursday when we went to go see the film, that I love the visualization in the action set pieces in the first Ant-Man film, because they were so clearly Edgar Wright. I believe the first bit of footage that we saw of Ant-Man was at a San Diego Comic-Con, and Edgar Wright was still the director of the film, and he showed off this clip, and it was the clip of Ant-Man running towards security guards and like jumping on their guns and dodging bullets. And so that all came from Edgar Wright's head. And I'll always love the zippy nature of those scenes and Edgar Wright. And then bringing it around to Peyton Reed, what he brought to kind of pick up the pieces of Ant-Man was this very earnest family kind of sense of wonder that is just so reminiscent of like the 90s, 80s Disney sci-fi movies, a la like Honey, I Shrunk the Kid, most obviously. And, you know, films like Tomorrowland and The Black Hole and John Carter, like these Disney science fiction live action films that like are very high concept and intellectually ambitious, but fail on certain levels in various ways. And I'm always excited by it. So even though the first Ant-Man has its faults, I still really appreciate it for being a Disney sci-fi B movie.
Yeah, I will say this about Ant-Man is I still think it's a good movie. It's one of the lesser Marvel movies for me, because I mean that's just what happens when there's 20 movies. There's always going to be lesser. But the thing is about Ant-Man is it still feels the vision of like 2 or 3 different directors. It still feels like there's, what Edgar Wright wanted to do in those visualizations of the action scenes of, like, of course, you mentioned the, Ant-Man running across a gun, that kind of stuff. But then there's also, what Marvel was trying to do with, all their humor and also, their kind of television style type of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And then there's, Peyton Reed that's trying to, make his own, like, nice family film picture, within all that. So it felt like a compromise film, but given everything that had happened during the production, it still felt like this was the best way to go. This was the best, like, this was the best thing we were ever going to get out of it, because most people forget, I mean, Edgar Wright left like a year before the movie came out, like a little, like,
it was
year
just
and a month.
If I recall correctly, it was just after everyone had been cast, and
yes,
and that I thought was always the most curious thing was the principal. There was the principal cast, and it feels like, I feel like a day or two after Michael Douglas was announced, like, that's when Edgar Wright left the project, and that was why it felt like such a shocker, like a bombshell, because it felt like these actors could potentially have been locked into a film that they no longer agreed to, sort of like when Natalie Portman was really upset that Patty Jenkins left Thor 2.
Yes.
And that was one of the reasons that Natalie Portman signed on to the sequel in the first place, and then she was replaced, and Natalie Portman was forced to do Thor 2, like, kind of against her will. There's all of these, like, very disgusting, and this, like, you can't help when you're talking about Ant-Man or Ant-Man and the Wasp, but, like, bring up these, like, kind of like Marvel sausage making kind of things that, like, you don't really want to talk about or feel, where, like, it's like, if we think about, kind of how this movie is very much designed to come right after it came right after Avengers 2. It's coming right after Avengers 3. It's a palate cleanse. It's like a glass of milk, these movies, after the spiciness of Avengers movies. And I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to either celebrate it, you have to either embrace, like, the fact that, like, these are Marvel movies, they are corporations, this is a company that is making a product to sell toys.
Yes.
And there's that kind of, like, defeatism, while also the same optimism that comes with, hey, this production designer is insanely talented. Hey, I'm really interested in this composer's work. Hey, like, I love Paul Rudd. You can find beauty in these Marvel films. It's just kind of depends on how hard you're willing to look and what you're willing to, look past in terms of, like, plot holes or whatever, to really appreciate the scale of what these films are, whether they're Ant-Man or Infinity War. It's a singular vision of a story and universe that, like, is just, I have trouble criticizing, because there's nothing that's ever been like it ever.
Yeah, and going back to the thing about the actors, eventually Lily did, like, at the very next Comic-Con, was like, yes, I was devastated when Edgar Wright left, because she had only signed, like, a letter of intent, which is, she could easily have said, no, I don't want to do it anymore. But I think it was Adam McKay that convinced her to stay, because he was going to write more for her.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about Adam McKay.
Yes.
Adam McKay came in and left again.
Yes, what happened was...
okay. I totally forgot about Adam McKay. Wow.
Yeah, what happened was, to kind of explain a little bit, Adam McKay was, like, the first person Marvel asked. And it was also Paul Rudd's first choice, too. and Adam McKay was like, I would love to do a Marvel movie one day, but I think he was still working on The Big Short or getting ready to do The Big Short.
Yeah.
So he was like, I can't like do that. But he would take on a writing assignment and help Paul Rudd rewrite the script. So they were rewriting the script very quickly, and Adam McKay or someone, part of the writing team was like, no, we'll write you better role, because apparently the Wasp or Hope Van Dyne wasn't that big of a character in the movie. She was kind of just more of the love interest, but she still wanted to work with Edgar Wright anyway. And Adam McKay convinced her, no, you're going to have a bigger role than just the love story or the love part. So that's what so I think that's what convinced her to stay. And yes, there is that cynicism of like, yeah, everyone did, and I think eventually everyone did talk about like, it was a shame that they didn't get to work with Edgar Wright. And even Michael Douglas has said, like, I would love to work with Edgar on anything. If he ever needs anything, I would love to do another movie with him. But yeah, it's sad. But the movie still, I think it's a testament to Peyton Reed, because Peyton Reed was able to make it work. He was able to make everything that had happened work, and he didn't have that much time. Like, and and the kind of effects they're doing, it's still even complicated today by today's standards. So, honestly, I think Peyton Reed did a good job, and I think there's a reason why he got to come back and do the sequel, is because he was able to make it work. And kind of easing our way into that, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is a stronger movie because it feels much more of what Peyton Reed wanted to do in the first place, which is a pulpy family feel-good movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I've sort of come around on Ant-Man and the Wasp, because I felt a tinge of disappointment because of kind of, it felt even less vibrant and a little muddier than Marvel films usually were visually, especially the location, CGI, kind of convincing us that downtown Atlanta and Decatur was San Francisco. But I really appreciate what Peyton Reed does, which is he celebrates the absurdity of Ant-Man by making every aspect of it as convincing as possible, on the special effects side, on the character motivation side, on the, once you get past the initial hurdle of Ant-Man being a ridiculous character, you're able to play in this crazy playground of giant man and the quantum realm, which we haven't even. This is the first time that we're bringing up the quantum realm somehow, but it's a very interesting playground that I ultimately want to see more of. I hope that there are more Ant-Man movies than they are anticipating, because I could watch 15 Ant-Man movies before I could watch 15 Iron Man movies, and I could pretty handily say that.
Yeah, or for me, I could watch 15 more of Ant-Man movies before I can watch 15 more Doctor Strange movies. Because
and so if you compare, Ant-Man being a film nobody asked for to Doctor Strange being another film that nobody asked for, it's Doctor Strange is more blatant and has less excuses for its Iron Man ripoffness, versus the original Ant-Man, which does have the same weird like tie-ins to the original Iron Man. Like, you know, the antagonist is a bald guy who just has a suit that's the exact same as as our protagonist, and it's same exact abilities, and even Black Panther got away with that. It's like, what you got to kind of accept some of these things, and I think Peyton Reed is the epitome of a Hollywood filmmaker who never really had that much of a voice or charisma in his film career, like with, I guess, Bring It On being like one of the biggest exceptions. I also do like Yes Man a lot as a film. I take that back.
I like Down with Love.
I don't think I saw that one.
Check it out. It's it's just very quickly. It's Ewan McGregor and Renee Zellweger are in a rom-com where Renee Zellweger writes this book about like basically challenging the norms of what women do the female homemaker, the stereotypical female homemaker, and she's like trying very hard to so she writes that book, and it basically kind of ruins Ewan McGregor's just like playerness, or it affects him to be like the solid player. So he's trying to like he's trying to play
this movie really bad.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, and there are some really cool directing flourishes, and it takes place in the 60s, which is awesome. It makes the 60s awesome.
I definitely want to watch that movie. It makes the 60s awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, as someone who doesn't really care about the 50s, 60s art style of like that, that art style, I think it really makes the 60s just pop.
Okay.
For some reason.
You're talking to someone whose favorite show is Mad Men, so like already sold.
Cool.
Yeah. But circling back around to Ant-Man and the Wasp, one of the things that I really appreciated about it was I think what's interesting about Ant-Man is Ant-Man and the Wasp specifically is that it really like has this kind of there's it's two movies battling each other, even still in the sequel, because in the Ant-Man and the Wasp feels so much like a sequel to Ant-Man, whereas like you look at any other Marvel sequel, like Thor 1 and Thor 2 and Thor 3 are all radically different from one another, and Captain America 1, 2, 3 are all three radically different from one another. Like, feels like an Iron Man 2 in the sense that it's a continuation of the same aesthetic, same director, same sensibilities. And like, could you imagine what like Taika Waititi could do with an Ant-Man movie? Like, holy cow. So I like, as much credit as I want to give Peyton Reed for making a competent, chill, funny, action-packed film, like I can't help but feel a little sense of loss or a little sense of like defeatism that this isn't a bombastic, crazy, wild movie, but that also wasn't the intention, so I can't base it off of that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about Edgar Wright. Like, what would Edgar Wright have done with these two these two movies? Because if you look at an Edgar Wright movie and you compare like the style and humor, it's not that far different. I don't think it is. Like, I don't think it's that far different. And also now that, now that Marvel's giving directors a little bit more freedom, like Ryan Coogler, Taika Waititi, James Gunn, and they're kind of now giving all these directors a little bit more playing room in this field. It's like, well, I kind of do wonder what Edgar Wright would do, even though I'm still happy with what we got from Peyton Reed. So I think Peyton Reed gets what these movies need to be. but I still wonder in the back of my mind, what would Edgar Wright keep doing if he was still on this franchise?
Yeah.
And I know and I'm not holding a grudge against Marvel or Disney. It's just, it's a what if scenario. If
That's
that,
the name of the game. Like you cannot like. It's and this is kind of what I investigate in my art and career is like, how much do you like? How badly do you really want to appeal to everybody? Because in that comes compromises inherently, because you can't please everyone, but you can try. And I think what I admire most about Disney movies in general is that they're constant efforts to appeal to everyone. And when it becomes a singular vision, or when it feels like a singular vision, or like this is exactly what a filmmaker thought and executed, that's when it feels really special. And I think now in these, I keep wanting to say independent, but standalone Marvel films, especially as of late, it feels like they absolutely are giving directors more freedom and leeway and the ability to execute their vision fully without interference. So I'm really looking forward to more of that. I just wish that Peyton Reed took far greater advantage of that ability than he did.
right. So, getting into Ant-Man and the Wasp, what are some specific things you like, and then we'll go into the spoiler territory.
Specific non-spoilerly things I liked was I did appreciate just the resurrection of, not even the resurrection, but the continuation of the same gags as from the first film, like Michael Peña's storytelling, Michael Peña's character period, the heist character, or I keep on the heist characters, and I even the ants, like if the ants are the stupid minion porgs of the Ant-Man franchise, like they're funny and they're cute, and I like I could watch 15 more minutes, if I'm being realistic, of like Cassie like playing fetch 2-foot tall ant. Like that's really funny. And like I want to see like my biggest compliment to Ant-Man and the Wasp is I'm dying for more, and my biggest criticism of Ant-Man and the Wasp is I'm dying for more.
Right, you're dying for more energy and more creative things.
Not even creative things, because the like things like the giant Pez dispenser, is inventive, and like Giant Man using a car or like the bed of a truck as like a skateboard, like that's super fun and cool, and like thinking about it makes me want to like leave this podcast and go see it again right this second. But kidding. But I think I wanted more of a. I still was missing Edgar Wright in this film. Ultimately, I was like I would have loved Baby Driver's kinetic energy in this film, because this film is ultimately a chase film, just like Baby Driver, and Baby Driver still has that music, has that energy, has that snapping pace that oftentimes in Ant-Man and the Wasp they kind of like kept the joke going just a hair too long, and just like a hair, like it's like the scene sat for a little too long when the back of my mind as a viewer, I'm like, wait, don't you guys need to go meet Michelle Pfeiffer right now? Like, or like, wait, like, isn't Ghost chasing you right now? Like,
Yeah, why are we standing? Yeah, why are we
why are we
standing
standing here? And my last criticism of Ant-Man and the Wasp, I know, like, listeners, this is a 3.5 out of 5, 4-star film for me. Just know that. With that being said, I love, or I don't love, Ghost in this film, the antagonist, because I found her very frustrating because it wasn't a moral quandary that she was caught between, kind of like Killmonger, kind of like these villains with very justifiable reasons for being villains. She just needed to be patient. Like, I don't know how many times like Lawrence Fishburne needed to tell her that, like, hey, like, if you just let, Hank and Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, go save their mom, they can come right to you and, like, cure you. You have a couple weeks to live. Like, they've got a couple minutes before the quantum realm closes or whatever. So, like, chill out, have a root beer, and we'll cure you of your ailments tomorrow, like, but she just wanted to get in the way of herself, and I find that frustrating.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of my negative too. Is that the and it's not a big negative. It's just I understand why Ghost is the way she is. I understand why she is just impatient because she's basically suffering from a chronic pain, and she just wants it to stop. And she's tired of waiting for all these. She's just tired of all these, people who have who are like, we have this other problem to deal with. We'll deal with you afterwards. She's been told that we'll deal with you afterwards. We'll deal with you after this, so everything with her, it made sense, but I don't think her chronic. I shouldn't say chronic pain. It should be like an allegorical chronic pain or metaphorical in that she. So in that she does get a cure, but it's never been like properly explored. It's not properly explored to the lengths it should be. And some of it is just because they have to move on. They have to keep the pace. Like you said, this is a chase movie. But the thing is, too, is I wish that got explored a little more. And just for the record, and this is going to be kind of our segue to the spoiler, she isn't cured by Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet. She is basically starting treatment to her way of being stabilized.
But she had started solidifying, like, at the like, or at least that, like, that. I heard that in the post-credit scene that, like, they still needed to, like, work on the cure for her.
Yes.
But visually and I think texturally, it's really clear that that whatever Janet was doing to her was, at least at the time, stabilizing her molecules and, like, having I think what was going on is, like, they were being ripped in half and, like, re-sewn together over and over and over.
Right.
She was kind of like this gorgeous Deadpool in a way.
Sure.
I don't know, but just in terms of, like, cell regeneration and stuff. But I like, moving into spoiler territory. I just found that ending predictable and not in a particularly satisfying way. It was weird because I know that like, yes, that's the way that Marvel movies go, is they have the post-credit scene that sets up the next one or teases, but, like, the film gave us, like, maybe a minute to be, like, satisfied and content and happy before it, like, twisted the knife in a way that, like, I guess after thinking more on it, there was no way for any of them to be aware that anything was going on in terms of the events of Infinity War. But it was strange to think like, oh, like this was going on at the exact same time as Infinity War, and like of course, like the only Earth battle was on Wakanda in Infinity War, so like no one on Earth knew what was going on until the Great Happening. I think what does the Infinity Gauntlet call it?
The cleansing, or I don't know.
Or the great, they call it the Great Disappearance or something in the Infinity Gauntlet comic. But I'm really excited for that movie.
Yeah. Well, who is it?
I guess I'm a little particularly excited because I'm friends with one of the set decorators on that film, and I don't know where I am, but I'm like a missing person in Avengers 4.
Oh.
Somewhere. And so I'm like really excited not only to see that if in the event that I make it in, because oftentimes when I do extra work or things like that, I get cut out because this space is made for podcasting. But I want to I don't know. I love Marvel. I love Marvel movies so much, and you can't take that away from me. Even the bad Marvel movies can't take away my love for Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been a truly awful Marvel movie yet, but I mean,
No. I mean, Doctor Strange comes pretty damn close.
It is. Oh, God, yes.
I saw that. I saw that movie opening night. I saw it by myself because no one wanted to go see it with me. And there was also a guy dressed up as Doctor Strange who was like being really annoying, and was like, I saw it at like the IMAX theater in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So it was like the 6-story, like legit IMAX screen.
Oh,
but this guy
nice.
like running around the theater, like doing Doctor Strange stuff before the movie. And I just wanted him to shut the hell up. And then I saw Doctor Strange and I wanted Benedict Cumberbatch to shut the hell up and stop being so mean to Rachel McAdams, and
God,
start asking some real questions like, why does Tilda Swinton look like that?
Why was Tilda Swinton in the movie? she's playing why can't they just hire a Tibetan actor? Like,
I don't know. That the whole thing is like, the whole premise is problematic. The whole premise of Doctor Strange is problematic because it's like it's dependent on white guy has an ailment, seeks Eastern medicine, finds something gets a surprise that he wasn't in for, or like whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like
They've
same.
saved, like, okay, since then though, since the first Doctor Strange movie, they have saved him, because in Thor Ragnarok he was great, and in Infinity War he was also great. So it's like I see that film, and even this Ant-Man and the Wasp, this film, they feel like necessary plot points in the overarching universe that are that require a lot of exposition and explanation, and that requires like a whole movie's worth of baloney to explain, to set up for the next film. But at the same time, has there ever been a more skippable movie than Ant-Man and the Wasp, in the sense that like everything that's important of Ant-Man and the Wasp, like when Michelle Pfeiffer was like talking about the time vortex, like watch out for the time vortex while you're in the quantum realm, like no shit, like we know that there's like a time vortex, we know that there's like gonna be a time travel element that is introduced via Ant-Man to, save the day in Avengers 4. And I don't know what that looks like, and I'm sure it's going to be super exciting, but like everything that she's saying is going to be elaborated on in the next film. So like if you're on the fence about seeing the film for whatever reason, like if you like really can't fit it into your schedule, like every important bit of Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to come up again in Avengers 4. So
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too about Ant-Man and the Wasp is it is a skippable movie, but I think it's, if you are a Marvel person, like if you have been following all 19 movies
don't skip the
beforehand,
movie. Yeah.
It's important because you kind of need like a fun palate cleanser after Infinity War, which just ends on a somber note. But my biggest issue with Ant-Man and the Wasp is not really the movie itself, is that the post-credit scenes, which it was expected. I'm not bashing them for not like showing us in Ant-Man and the Wasp who is going to live or who survived the Great Disappearance or whatnot. I'm bashing more because, or I would tell people to not see the post-credit scene because it kind of just takes away from the fun, light tone we just had.
Yeah.
It just, because
bummer.
It is. I was like, on this really good high, like, you know what, that was fun. Michael Douglas got to do more stuff. Evangeline Lilly got to kick ass. They got to make fun. They got to make fun of Paul Rudd. It was a fun movie, and also Michelle Pfeiffer, is back in Earth Realm. So to see, and we are in spoilers, to see the whole Pym family, go up in dust, it's like, that is such a bummer.
The other thing that I found to be a bummer about that scene, and this is a nitpick, I would say, and I'm sure there's an explanation, but there are 4 people in this scene. We've got the Pyms and Paul Rudd, and 50% of the world evaporated in a snap, but 75% of the people in this scene were disappeared, or great disappearance, or killed, or evaporated, or whatever you want to call it. Like, but the scene only works. This scene only works when all 3 disappear. Because if like it was just Michelle Pfeiffer and Paul Rudd, like Paul Rudd stuck in the quantum realm, Paul Rudd can be saved. So it's like, it's this like selective picking and choosing of like the people who die, or like it feels so calculated to propel the story forward. And it's a total nitpick, but like I would have better appreciated it if one of those 3 lived but couldn't get to Paul Rudd for a more complicated, more interesting like obstacle than, oh well, why not just all 3 die? Like it just felt disingenuous.
Well, here's the explanation I can think of why they're all 3 gone, is that it's only picking like half of the bloodlines in the universe.
Half of the bloodline,
like family.
Okay, gotcha.
Because when T'Challa evaporated, Joe Russo made the point that Shuri, I think that's her name, T'Challa's sister, and Shuri and her mother also evaporated as well. They also turned to dust as well. So I think it's
that's sad. I wish I hadn't known that.
Oh,
well, no, like I wish that I went like.
Well, they were going to explain it.
Peter Parker
movie
felt too far. Like Shuri evaporated. Like all the fun people died.
Yeah. Well, it's all now it's. Well, that's the only way I can explain it now. Is basically the snap took away half of like families, like or bloodlines of like these people, and that's all who survived. So is this half survived? This half did not. So that's what I think. So, and when we get to Avengers 4, we're gonna see Chris Pratt, or not Chris Pratt, Peter Quill's grandparents evaporate. We're gonna see Aunt May possibly evaporate. We're gonna see a bunch of people evaporate or get dusted.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's
down.
what. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'll say this.
It's a good movie. Go see it. Like,
yes.
Stop playing. Like, just what are you gonna do? Go see? I don't know. I can't even think of
the first Purge.
Oh God, the first Purge. Like, I was reading these tweets about like, who is murdering people on the Purge instead of like staying home and committing bank fraud all night, like, or like
or downloading a bunch of movies online.
Yeah, like you can have a chill Purge, but it's just, I guess it's just an excuse to murder people, or just an excuse to be a premise for a major franchise. I can't believe the Purge is this big. Like, I wish we still had Paranormal Activities and Saws every year instead of more Purges.
Well, we did have a new Saw movie last year, so
I loved it. I loved that movie.
I still haven't seen it.
I hadn't seen any of the Saw movies before, and I binged the first 7 of them, and it was a haunting, horrifying, but ultimately rewarding experience. It's one of the best. The Saw films are like, it's like one of the best Netflix original series, in the sense that, like, I'm sure watching those movies over the course of 8 years was excruciating and stupid and awful, because every other movie undoes the events of the other movie. but when you watch it concurrently, like, you don't really mind that, the third movie undoes events from the end of the second movie, because that just happened, narratively in your mind, and within the universe of the film. So it's like, oh, well, okay, if that's not the case and you're being presented new information, like, that doesn't upset me. That just furthers the plot. And so, like, if you haven't yet, I highly suggest watching all the Saw films as though it's one, like, show or cohesive story, because I'm like, the bad ones, and there is a bad one. I think Saw 3D is the bad one, but the really bad ones become less bad. And
okay,
yeah, and I'm sure isolated cinematic experiences, the Saw movies are not good, but as a October 14th evening special where you stay up until 3:00 in the morning watching all the Saw films like I did, you may sing a different tune.
Maybe I will one day. I chose to do the Friday the 13th franchise last October, and that was a big mistake, because they're all the same.
Mistake? Why?
They're all the same movie, except for 6. Yeah. Except for 6, which actually just said we're gonna make a comedy instead, and then
yeah.
But yeah. So, but anyway, so yeah, go see Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, you're not missing a whole lot if you don't see it the opening weekend, and you kind of already know what's going to happen in the post-credit scene. Like, that something's going to, because if you've seen the last Avengers movie, you'll know. But still, it's a fun movie, and only thing I was a little bit more surprised was I wish we had gotten a Captain Marvel teaser.
Yeah, Captain Marvel next up.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
it's not for another
8 months.
8 months.
Woohoo! I know. I'm excited.
8 month it's an 8-month break from the Marvel Cinematic Universe in my mind. Here's some time that I don't have to think about it anymore.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the 8 months, because once we get back, we're gonna have 2 months later. We're gonna get the 4th Avengers movie, and then another 2 months later, we're gonna get the new Spider-Man movie. So,
Spider-Man is called Spider-Man Far From Home. That's the most ridiculous title I've ever heard in my life. Only because, and I want to ask you, Youth Critic, if you've heard of this film, because I made this meme. I don't know if you saw the tweet.
I think I did. I did.
I photoshopped Peter Parker's face over the lead in Far From Home, The Adventures of Yellow Dog, the 20th Century Fox straight to VHS dog movie that I've never seen, but I've only seen the trailer for on VHS when I would watch, I don't know, like The Sandlot or something. And like it's around that era, and it's this lab retriever dog or a golden retriever dog movie called Far From Home. And now for the next year, I'm going to hear the phrase Spider-Man Far From Home, and in my mind, I'm going to call it Spider-Man Far From Home, The Adventures of Yellow Dog. And that will just be a joke between me, potentially you, Kale, and everyone
now
who's
that I
listening.
know. Yeah.
The Spider-Man Far From Home, The Adventures of Yellow Dog.
It'll be an inside joke for all of our listeners and you and me. But the thing about Spider-Man Far From Home that I'm like the most curious of is like I'm excited for an international Spider-Man movie, but then again, the key essential of a Spider-Man movie is that Peter Parker is broke. So
which has not been the case since Civil War. Like Civil War was the only clear that scene with Peter Parker, and like I'm sure it was an undercooked, kind of set, but like his bedroom was so much different, and felt so much more tactile and real. Like, oh, this really seems like what broke Peter Parker, who's still a techie in 2015 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, oh, this is what his bedroom would be like. But his bedroom in Spider-Man Homecoming, like, has a bunk bed. Like,
it looks like an apartment.
Orphan. Like, yeah, it's like he's an orphan. What does he have a bunk bed for? Like, he doesn't have any family. Like, he doesn't have, it's just, I don't know. Peter Parker shouldn't have a bunk bed.
I mean,
what if he gets scared at night and he jumps up and, like, instead of climbing on the roof, or on the roof of the room, he keeps hitting his head on the bunk bed. At night, his spider senses tingle, like little boys do. And
maybe he sleeps on top.
Maybe he sleeps on top.
But even then, it would be like, it wouldn't be enough for him to like grab on the wall and stop hitting his head.
Yeah.
Just seeing that now in my head is funny.
It's a funny thought.
But yeah. I keep making that joke on Twitter. Man, Ben Parker's life insurance policy must have been something for them to have like this spacious apartment.
Oh yeah, it's go out for Thai food every night. Ant-Man, who do you think you are?
Who do you work for? Like,
Ant-Man, what do you do for a living? Is she a nurse in this film? Is she a nurse still in this universe?
I don't know. It's never explained what Aunt May does other than just sit at home and mope and wait for Peter to come in and ask for something.
She's just sitting there in the living room, all the lights on, every night while Peter Parker's sneaking into his bedroom. And like she's just waiting for him to walk through the front door, but like she never does and gets sad and confused. And little does she know that I guess she does know now that her little nephew is a spider boy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe that's what she's doing. She's sending him to a boarding school in London.
Apparently, it's a trip. It's an international trip with his friends. I was reading online,
Which they
and which is fine. But that's what like they're just going to copy the plot of Rugrats in Paris. That's essentially what this film's going to be. Like I can see it now. We are going to see Spider-Man swinging on the Eiffel Tower, and like that's something that we've never seen before. I've never seen before. But
chill and have a shepherd's pie on the Big Ben.
Yeah, like is this what we want to do immediately after something as small as Homecoming, or do we want to keep exploring the kind of Hey Arnold world that he lives in?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of more just like, that's such a curious choice, because I would think, let's explore this more. Like, let's explore New York more. Let's explore the characters. Let's explore the high school setting more.
I guess it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, I'm sure Kevin Feige knows what he's doing. I don't want to dispute that. Like, it's like this dude's been thinking it through, like in his bedroom for
40 years.
For 40 years. Yeah, like.
You know,
I'm sure there are a lot of business decisions that have been made at Marvel, but like one thing's for sure is like this is one nerd's wet dream, and that nerd is Kevin Feige, because he just gets to decide what the bathtub general storyline of these films. He probably just sits there in his bathtub with all the action figures, just like I did as a kid, and comes up with cute little crossover adventures, even though mine were between Wolverine and Daredevil, because I thought they would be best friends. But then I realized I was just gay. And I'm jealous of Kevin Feige, but at the same time, I love exploring his universe. And
yeah,
I hope to continue to.
I wonder how much longer it'll be, but that'll be a conversation for another day.
For another day.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's just the other thing about Spider-Man is that I think there's a joke to be made in that. What if Venom ends with like him going to New York, but Spider-Man's just not there? Because Marvel was like, no,
because Spider-Man's in Europe.
Yeah. Like, no, I don't.
I am willing to put money. I'm willing to put money on the bet that Tom Holland will show up in Venom.
I thought the movie still took place in San Francisco, though.
I thought it took place in New York.
I don't know. Maybe you're right.
New York. It's Eddie Brock.
Maybe you're right, and I'm thinking of something different.
I don't know, but I think Tom Holland's going to show up in some capacity, and just more than referenced is my prediction.
Yeah, because
Spider-Man was referenced in Ant-Man.
Right. But I mean, the reason why it have to be is because how do you have a Venom movie and not have Spider-Man in it?
It's weird. It's weird, and it's not natural.
It's not natural. We don't want it.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. But yeah. So do we have any more thoughts on Marvel or Ant-Man and the Wasp for now?
No, I think I said my piece. If you're a fan of the Ant-Man franchise, I recommend you see Race to Witch Mountain or Escape to Witch Mountain. Which one's the original? The 80s one. The computer who wore tennis shoes, the black hole, those 70s, 80s Tron, both Trons. Like, if you like Ant-Man, watch those films, because spiritually, I believe they are sisters. That's all.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, just watch Tron Legacy for the soundtrack.
I watched Tron Legacy for the whole damn film, Kale. You can't stop me.
I'm not going to stop you because I want you to listen to that Daft Punk soundtrack.
I have the Daft Punk soundtrack on vinyl. If I want to listen to the Daft Punk soundtrack, I will put on the record and listen to the Daft Punk soundtrack, which I do maybe like once a week. But every 2 weeks for my health, I put on my iTunes 4K streaming version of Tron Legacy and watch that baby with all of its IMAX footage and glory and shifting aspect ratios and weird CGI Jeff Bridges and wooden lifeless protagonists and gorgeous Olivia Wilde and philosophical and religious questions that are posed but left unanswered except for when you explore them in the animated series that comes out 3 years later. I love Tron so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm done.
God, I wish I would have known you back a year ago because you would have been great for the Tron retrospective podcast.
I'm friends with Yori Lives on Facebook, which is like this super fan who just gives continuous Tron updates even when there are no Tron updates. Like for the Tron fan community, even though there's been one film in 35 plus years, or like it's still a franchise in a lot of people's hearts, even though I think for all instances, it's almost by definition not a franchise because Disney doesn't treat it like a franchise. It's 2 films, a TV show, and a ride in Shanghai.
It is a franchise by definition. It's just not ongoing.
It's I guess. I just want more.
Well,
I'm gonna write a Tron 3.
Well, everybody go check out Top Gun 2. And maybe Joseph Kaczynski will finally get that moolah to do Tron 3. And that way we can avoid a Tron reboot with oh God, who's the Joker now? Who's playing the Joker now?
Oh, Jared Leto. Oh, I forgot about that headline. That was terrifying.
That pretty much scared the internet shitless. Yeah. Oh God. So with that, Tyler, we're gonna move on to the second half of this podcast with Gene. Where can the good people find you? And don't you have a new podcast out?
I do have a new podcast out. Thank you for that generous plug. You can listen to Meet My Friend with Tyler Scruggs, a podcast where I interview acquaintances, Twitter mutuals, and Instagram crushes offline and share them online and kind of get to know people better. You can listen to that through Anchor. It'll be on the other streaming services very soon as it get approved. It literally just came out yesterday, Monday the 9th. You can find me on Twitter and in life at Tyler Scruggs, TYLER SCRUGGS, and Instagram at Scruggernaut at SCRUGGERNAUT. Thanks.
I'll have the links to all that in the description of this podcast. Please check it out. I listened to like the first 20-25 minutes of it, and it was really
Which is the majority.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I went to breakfast before I could finish, but yeah, it's really good. It's really good content. It's a really good episode. I can't wait to finish it. Please check it out. And we're gonna go on to Gene and Tyler. Thank you so much, and we're gonna have you back soon. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me, Phil. Have a great day.
She seems more intense.
Get loose now. No.
You go low, I'll go high.
I have wings. Why would I go low?
We're gonna die. I don't wanna die. We didn't die.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Youth Critic Podcast. I'm your host, Kel Smith. Joining me today is Gene Aversa from the Waffle Press.
Hey, how you doing? Good to have me back.
It's good to have you back. So, getting things off started, Gene, we were talking part of this episode. What our thoughts were on the first movie, and currently what we were thinking about that project. So, Gene, why don't you go ahead and chime in your thoughts on the first Ant-Man movie?
Well, I certainly enjoyed the first Ant-Man movie. In the back of my head, I knew what could have been with Edgar Wright if he did it, and it always kind of bugged me a bit. No pun intended. But I did enjoy it. It was very, yeah, it was very competently made. It had some funny gags. All the finale stuff with them in the briefcase playing the Cure as they're like falling down because the Siri can't hear or something. That was some great stuff. So yeah, it's pretty good in my book.
Yeah, I thought the first one was really. I thought it was fine. I thought it was kind of lower tier Marvel. I think for me the issue with Ant-Man was not only was it that we did lose Edgar Wright, which was the thing kind of keeping everybody like excited, but I think also it was a movie that was a part of three different visions rather than just one. Because you had to work with Edgar Wright's vision, the stuff that he had already kind of set into place before he left, and then you had to work with what Marvel wanted, and then you had to work, and then Peyton Reed had to kind of find his own voice within that one. And while I personally think Peyton Reed succeeded in making a competent movie, where if you didn't know anything about the trouble behind the productions, you wouldn't see it.
Right. And you could have mainly, yeah, and it mainly comes from like the Marvel Council or the Writers Council thing that got Edgar right. And that sucks because like he was one of the first people that were like called into the MCU when it first started, like in 2008. He was working on that for like 7 years. So yeah, that's the worst part about that whole thing.
It is. It is kind of the worst part of it because it's the worst part of it because it came so close. Like they had everyone casted. They were pretty much building the sets already in Atlanta. So it was already like a run and go production. And then Marvel kind of had to step in and go, or we're going to do this movie. And Edgar Wright was like, no, I wanted to do this movie. And that was a part of the departure. And I think that's always going to be the curse with Ant-Man and the Wasp. And basically this whole Ant-Man series is that everyone's going to wonder, what was meant to be.
Yeah.
So, oh well. But yeah, the first one was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So going from that to Ant-Man and the Wasp, Gene, what did you think about that movie?
I wasn't really anticipating it. Like none of the trailers really had me hyped for it. And I went in, with an open mind in it. I was certainly enjoying it. I don't think it was like terrible, but I was just a little like whelmed, I guess. I was just whelmed seeing it. I don't think excuse me, I don't think it was like, I think it was fine. I think it was like, I heard the best like thing about it's like it's the best follow-up to Infinity War, and it's like the only follow-up to Infinity War. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, it was fine. I felt that someone pointed out like the characterization of Scott Lang was very dumbed down in this sequel because he's not in the first one. Like he's like some he worked at a Cross Technology and like he did all this like sabotage and stuff, and he was like pretty competent in like in his field. And this one he just feels dumb, I guess. Like he's not a very like, thought out protagonist. But it's yeah, it was fine. Wasp was the better part of the film. I wish they did more with Walton Goggins. If you have Walton Goggins, you should just make it as like weird as possible. He'd be great like as a supervillain or something like that. I felt Ghost was one of the better Marvel villains. She was sympathetic and really got that across. So yeah, I would say it's like a 7 and 8. Yeah, that's what I would go.
Yeah, I think it's about a 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, here's the thing that I really liked about Ant-Man and the Wasp is that after everything that had happened, not only after Avengers Infinity War, but also the high stakes of Black Panther 2, Black Panther, where, I mean, Black Panther was also a kind of a high stakes movie because it was basically they were fighting for the soul in the land of Wakanda. Mm-hmm. And then on Avengers Infinity War, they're fighting for like half the universe to survive.
Yeah.
So going into this movie, I don't know, it felt like a nice, refreshing, like cleanser to be like, okay, the stakes are we're here to come and save this one individual.
Yeah, and this house or this lab.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, we're basically chasing a giant lab. That was it.
Yeah.
As my friend Trey would describe it, it's very much like it's a mad world.
Yeah.
Like everyone's just chasing this one MacGuffin.
Yeah, pretty much.
And also I would kind of throw in
like a giant chase movie. It's a giant chase movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a giant chase movie. Everyone's like coveting they're coveting this one item, and like Walton Goggins wants it because he wants to sell it for like $1 billion, and Ghost wants it because she can use the technology to basically save herself, and then our heroes want it because they can use the technology in it to basically save Janet. So
yeah,
interesting small stakes, but still it makes for a fun chase movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that, I thought the movie was just like okay. Like I thought it was really good in the grand scheme of things, but really and honestly, I walked out having a good time, and honestly, that was all I really wanted from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Just a really good time.
Yeah. And I think it delivered on that for sure.
Mm-hmm. I believe so as well. I think it did a phenomenal job delivering on the fun breeziness. If I did have a criticism, it would be, I wish there was more development on Ghost's illness.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of just becomes like a side plot of the movie.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought it was genuinely well handled. I thought it was genuinely well done, well handled, well thought. I thought everything else was very well handled. I thought everyone did a good job. Everyone kind of expanded their roles. So I don't really have much really to complain about that's non-spoilery. So, Gene, do you want to get into spoilers?
Sure.
So, what are some specific things that you liked?
The Wasp for sure. Imogene Lilly is just great in this. Paul Rudd, as always, even though I felt his characterization was a little bit off. And trying to think. I would say Michelle Pfeiffer, even though her role was a little too short for my taste, but she was awesome in it. And just everything, the microverse was like the most interesting aspect of this film, like all the B-movie-ness of it. That's what I loved, and I wish there was more of that.
For me, it reminded me a lot of Fantastic Voyage. Just a little bit. I mean, I know they're not inside the body. They're not inside someone or a body, but it felt very much like that trippy imagery of like moving across through different like weird plasmas.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it.
So, and that's how, and basically in terms of non-spoilers, I kind of felt some of the gags did. The biggest gag for me, I thought that kind of ran a little undone was the whole like FBI just coming in and trying to bust Scott for breaking in.
Yeah.
Or like violating his like house arrest code. I thought that gag was done a little too much because it's like, well, at a certain point, like, why not just leave like one person at the door, and that way,
yeah, and it was just kind of.
It's still like, but I mean, what?
They were just kind of, I don't know, like mean-spirited a bit. Like, I don't know if mean-spirited is the best word, but they were just kind of like annoying. After a while, it's like, oh, it's because it's the kind of the same scene. It's like, oh, we get it. He's going to be arrested if he goes out of the house. It's not really saying anything else.
I did like Ghost into the whole thing in that she pretty much is the consequence of other people's ambitions, including her father. She's basically the consequence. She's the consequence of scientific ambition that goes horribly awry.
Horribly.
And now she's having to pay the price of basically the metaphor of chronic pain.
Yeah.
And I know, and it wasn't that properly developed, but I still liked it, and also I still, while it is at the end, like very much like we just solved it through mumbo jumbo magic, mumbo jumbo science.
Yeah.
They still like they still at the post credit scene they do reference that they're gonna have to go back to the quantum realm a few more times to get like more quantum energy extracted, so they can kind of help like build her treatment. So again, carrying on the metaphor that while Ghost is stabilizing herself, she'll have to continue going for treatment.
Oh, for sure.
Which is a very common thing for people who have chronic pains or an illness that's long lasting.
Yeah.
But other than that, what else can we say about the movie? Because I've kind of run out of things to say other than it's really good. It's fun. There's a scene where Paul Rudd is about the size of a child, and that occasionally, and that has some good laughs.
Yeah. It's funny.
It is. It's really funny.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I can't say too much about it.
Yeah, I don't know what else more I can say other than it was fine.
Yeah.
Or it was fun. I shouldn't say fine. It was fun. It was just a fun, breezy movie. So, with that said, do you think this movie should have came out right after Avengers, or do you think we should have gotten Captain Marvel and then this? Or better yet, switch this movie with Avengers Infinity War?
I think maybe it should have come back or come like right before Infinity War. It might have given you some hints about the next one. But yeah, I think it's perfectly fine where it was. Yeah.
Okay. Because, I mean, I understand why Marvel released it, but I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot by giving them a full year after Infinity War. I think because now so many of their fans are like, well, we kind of just want to go. We just want to see what happens after we want to see what happens right after Infinity War, and they're not going to get that until like two more movies.
Yeah.
So I think and on top of that, they still haven't officially announced their slate for 2020 or 2021. Even though we can kind of guess it, for sure that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will come out right after, because there's already rumblings in Atlanta that there's already rumblings in Atlanta that it'll start production in early 2019.
Okay.
And then Spider-Man obviously is about to start filming. So, so yeah, it's all so it's all like they're really trying to keep a close lid, but eventually they're gonna have to unleash the veil and be like, okay, here's what's happening, here's how it's gonna happen. So I think they did kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, is there any more to say on Ant-Man and the Wasp?
No, I think that'd be it for me.
Okay. All right. Well, until next time. Well, before we get into next time, Gene, do you have any things to plug in? Where can the good people find you?
Oh yeah, you could check out the Waffle Press on YouTube, subscribe, iTunes, and SoundCloud, and just follow us on Twitter. You could find me on Twitter on Gene9892.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Gene. We will be back with everyone soon. But we'll be back. Let me restart over.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Gene. You can find me on Twitter at MovieKale, and you can also follow the show at The Youth Critic. And you can also follow the channel that distributes this podcast at KHZ Network. Thanks, everyone. We will be back with you very shortly with not only the episode about Skyscraper, but we'll also kind of do an indie catch-up episode that we are going to kind of catch up on some of the summer indie films that have come out in the last month or two. So with that said, everyone, we'll see you real soon with not only Skyscraper, but an episode dedicated to the summer indie films. And that's it. Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Gene, so much for being on the show, and thanks, Tyler Scruggs, for being on the last episode, on the last part. And we will see you all very soon.
Hey, what'd I miss? We were just tiny.
I was partners with Hank on a project called Goliath.
How big did you get?
My record, 21 feet. You?
65 feet.
65.
If you two are finished comparing sizes...
65.